Welcome everybody to GoLocal Live. I'm Josh Fenton, CEO and co-founder. Before we get started, a couple quick news items. Number one, the governor is saying that she's going to get childcare back and going so people can get back to work, looking at a June 1 date for that. I think she'll have more updates on that going forward this week. She'll be on at 2:30 today. Today's Wednesday, 2:30. The governor will have her press event. You can watch it here live on GoLocal. Also, take a look at the new app she's unveiled, the state has unveiled, called Crush COVID RI. Some controversy about that. The ACLU has raised some issue. We took a look at the privacy terms of that app and raised some questions in a news article today. Take a peek at that as well. Later today, we've got Dr. Michael Fine at 12 o'clock. We've got Denny DeJesus from Special Olympics Rhode Island. He'll be on at 1 o'clock, and then the governor at 2:30. But right now, let's go to Zach Levesque over at Northpointe. Zach, how are we?
We're doing well. How are you, Josh?
Excellent. Beautiful day. Let's go to some of the news related to the housing market. First off, a lot of information now coming out that what people are really, really looking for in their searching for a new home or to upgrade, they've realized it over the last 2-3 months, is they need a home with an office, and people are looking to buy bigger homes than they normally would have.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think as a nation, as corporations learn from this and learn from the activity that happens because of the pandemic, because so many people are forced to work from home, I think it's causing us to realize that a lot of the things that we had done in person don't need to be done. And a lot of corporations are looking at their workforce productivity, in some cases, increase at home. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I haven't had that conversation specifically with our realtor partners, but I will, as this becomes more prevalent. But it makes sense because, right now, a lot of people are working from home from their kitchen tables. But if it's going to be more of a permanent thing, to create some sort of oasis and some area that is separate from, the living room, the kitchen, makes sense so that that concentration level can be high. And, I think we saw a trend over the last couple of years that home offices had become sort of a new thing. And I think it's definitely going to continue with more people potentially working from home. We saw Twitter announce that permanently all of their employees can work from home. Obviously, that's a West Coast Palo Alto company that is very forward thinking, like a Google, like a Facebook. And Jack Dorsey, who owns Twitter, also is a CEO at Square. He's doing the same thing reportedly with all the Square employees. So I think we're going to see a real big shift. And I think it's going to increase over the next couple of days into the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, Google's also made that announcement that workers can work from home at least through the end of this calendar year. And one of the major banks yesterday encouraged everyone of a certain, the majority of their workforce, but above a certain level outside the actual hardcore banks, that they should work from home as well. That's going to have a tremendous impact on how people think about their homes and how they work from their home.
Yeah, for sure. And to your point, if two individuals are going to be working from home, you need more space, whether you do one office that can be used simultaneously, a larger office, but we're probably going to see home footprints change too. People building homes, architects are going to be more involved. So it's a very interesting trend. And sometimes things like this force hands with corporations and just with really how people think as far as what they can do on a daily basis and where they can do it from. From our end, operations wise, we're still not back at work. I'm still not back at work. And we're hearing it might not happen until potentially July. For our operations people, they can do everything from home and they don't have to meet with the client or realtor face to face. So all of that work can be accomplished at home. On the sales side, that can be done as well. It's tough not to see your clients face to face sometimes, especially at the closing. So I do expect that on the sales side, because a lot of clients do like to meet us face to face, that will continue once the pandemic slows down. But on the operations side, it's really not required.
Jerome Powell did an interview with 60 Minutes on Sunday night and made a lot of news on a lot of levels. Number one, he said he thought unemployment was at functionally 25%. He said the Fed's going to pour in as much money as necessary to limit the exposure of the American economy. And third of all, he said, get ready for a lot of change. What was your takeaway from the standpoint of your industry of what the Fed chairman said?
Yeah, my takeaway, and I've said this on the show, I've said this for the last couple months, I think Jerome Powell is a very, very good leader. I think he listens to the people around him that have that experience. Obviously, he sparred with Trump a little bit on the discount rate. There's a lot of speculation that there's going to be another 50 basis point reduction in the discount rate at the next Fed meeting. We'll have to see what happens there. But my takeaway from his comments are that they know what's happening and what's at stake, and they're realistic as far as unemployment being reported at 15. He says it's really 25. That's scary, but I think they're reacting the way they are because most people feel like once a country gets back to work, a huge chunk of that unemployed population is going to get back to work, and it's going to really repair that amount, and we'll see unemployment go low. How much lower will it go? Is it going to return to where it was before the pandemic? Probably not. But I think the feeling is if it really is 25, it's going to rapidly decrease as the country gets back to work. And one of the most important takeaways I really took from his comments have to do with the comparisons from the current crisis to the banking liquidity crisis in 2007 that we all remember. That's the last major crisis that we saw. And, good things can come from really bad situations. And one of the good things that came from that situation is that the Fed and lawmakers forced the banks to carry more liquidity. They forced banks to hold more cash on hand. And banks learned a lot from the issues that they had and are much better prepared to handle this storm that they're in right now. And he made comments to the fact that when this pandemic started, banks were in a much better position to deal with this crisis compared to 2007, 2008. And I think that's really important because we saw what can happen to our economy if banks are not strong and banks are not liquid. So that was one of my bigger takeaways, and it makes me feel good that our Fed chief is cognizant of the past and also looking forward to the future. It seems like he's making as many positive statements as he can without being, too virtuous, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. The other news that's starting to really develop, it's New York City driven, but it certainly has implications in every functionally state across the country and every downtown, is as workplace changes and so many people for the foreseeable future, potentially years, and it may become behavioral because of increased, people aren't stuck commuting in their cars, that corporate office footprints, commercial office space is going to decline. And what that implication is, I know you're a residential guy, but aren't we going to see a lot of commercial space over the next few years convert to residential, either as rental or as condo?
Yeah, it's very interesting to see what's going to happen with the commercial market. And I guess before that question can be answered, we're really going to have to see how much of an exodus there is from in workplace to people working remotely. These major corporations, Twitter, Square, it's more of a West Coast mentality. I'm not sure how much that will leak into the Northeast because I think some people are just more functional and more productive at work, depending on what happens in their household. There was an interesting article, and I'm sure you saw this, that Amazon is eyeing JCPenney for a purchase, and that would be a really big purchase involved in that commercial market because think of how much commercial real estate JCPenney has. The repositioning of the commercial properties, it's interesting because you can do so many things. It could be a large corporation like an Amazon purchasing some commercial real estate, repositioning it. And the functions of commercial real estate could be literally so many things. And I'm sure that the really, really smart people are looking at what to do with some of this property as values diminish, because I would assume that because of all of this, we're looking at property value decreases in many areas related to commercial real estate.
Yeah, I think the debate this morning on CNN was, listen, you've got office space in New York where 7,000 people go to work every day. And if you've got a breakout of coronavirus on floor 14, what's the implications to the health of everyone else? Obviously, that may have some implications in shared space if it was residential, elevators, hallways, lobbies, but not to the same extent of a whole footprint of a floor that is potentially contaminated just by one worker, and we've seen that type of spread in certain situations. It's certainly going to be an implication as to the potential of a tremendous amount of new housing coming onto the market over the next few years.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, we've talked about the inventory shortage in Rhode Island, even in southeastern Mass. It's happening really all over the place. New York is some of the highest priced real estate in the country, as we know. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens there if all of a sudden there's a lot of inventory. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of commercial properties repositioned to residential, maybe mixed use, where they cut down the commercial concentration. I think we're going to see a lot of that. But the question is, what is this going to do to that real estate? And does it put us in a position where we now have more inventory? Will it help to level prices? And also, will that prop up the home purchase market across the country? Fannie Mae released a report recently about and raised their guidance on the amount of originations in the U.S. over the next 18 months, primarily because of interest rates going down and the little refinance boom that we're in right now. But they're also expecting a little bit of a resurgence in the purchase market because, we all know we're going to emerge from this pandemic. The question is when and how much damage is done. But we will emerge still in a low inventory market with rates at or below where they have been over the past 12 months. I mean, they could raise, obviously, we'll see what happens, but we're all kind of expecting a lower interest rate environment moving into the next couple of quarters, and Fannie Mae is kind of echoing that. And it's going to be interesting to see how the commercial market influence the residential market. And, I'm sure you're going to see a lot of different floor plans when it comes to residential and commercial as well. If you're repositioning commercial properties to residential, and the fear is you don't want to be around people, architects and engineers can design different footprints to keep people, I guess, away from other people. And I'm sure you're going to be seeing a lot of communication on that as well.
Yeah, you're not going back into that cubby hole that ends at 5 feet probably ever again. That's going to be a major change in the workplace. Zach, as always, you get the last word.
The last word. I wish I had something mind blowing to say, but it seems as days are going by, and I'm not going to get political. Obviously, you get political sometimes with your show, but there's a lot of back and forth on when states should open, and the states that have opened, what the results look like. It does seem like the sentiment has changed, and there's a lot more positivity. So let's all be good to each other, stay positive, and if we all stick together and we're all safe, we'll get through this quicker, and hopefully some much brighter days ahead.
Zach, thanks so much. Zach from Northpointe, as always, every week joins us talking about real estate market, finance, etc. For everybody else, we'll be back at 12 noon with Dr. Michael Fine, 1 o'clock with Special Olympics head Denny DeJesus, and 2:30 with Governor Raimondo's press event. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Please stay safe.